You can tune in to SNY tomorrow at 7 o'clock for SNY's exclusive Jets Nation Draft Day special. You got Steve, you got Bart Scott, you got Braylon Edwards, you got plenty more SNY draft analysts to break down draft day for the Jets only on SNY. Steve, welcome. Congratulations.
What up, Steve?
Maggie, thank you so much for that introduction. Moose, great to see you. I do have to say this, though. I know you mentioned the Jets and the Mets. I was texting with Moose a little earlier. I thought this was going to be almost exclusively about the Rangers' late playoff push.
We're going to get into
Steve, right now.
And Steve is as big of a Ranger fan as you'll find. I mean, He's like a sycophant. He's breaking down scouting reports of the Swedish defenseman they drafted 3 years ago. So we'll get into a little Rangers at the end as well, because we got to. I mean, because they're hot as a firecracker right now, Gelbs.
Don't worry. We're going to be breaking down the fourth through 8 line for the Rangers is going to be a topic. But I don't know if you're going to remember this, Steve, but I will. The first time that we ever had you on the radio, we played a very fun game of Mary F. Kill, Keith, Gary, Ron. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna bring it back now. A little Mary F. Kill. Let's go. Rex, Parcells, Adam Gase.
Well, I mean, you know where Gase is. That's the easy one. Mary would be. Let's go. I will go with Mary Rex because just endlessly entertaining, and I don't even want to, Parcells. I don't know. How do you want me to answer that, Maggie? Like, that's enough said. Let's just go with the Mary part, with Rex being just endless, keeping me in stitches for the majority of my life.
And we know Rex is a foot guy, so there you go. All right, Steve, a lot to get into. We'll get into it.
Weird start, guys.
Yeah, weird start. Yeah, we'll
is there
get
any
back.
Other way?
Let's get into. We'll start with the Jets, right? Tomorrow night, big draft night for the Jets, right? Another quarterback. They're going to draft second overall, Zach Wilson. We know that. For Joe Douglas here, rebuilding this. He's got 21 picks in the next 2 drafts, Steve. You grew up a huge Jet fan. You're now going to be anchoring the coverage on SNY. For Jet fans here, the trust that they should have in Douglas being able to not only pick the right talent, but being able to put together a winning team on the field.
Listen, I'm all in on Joe Douglas, and I have been from the start. And I think last year's draft was a great example of what he's trying to do. For me, when you look at this year and really next year, this is it. This is the opportunity. Once again, it feels like there's an opportunity every few years, but this is the moment that Joe Douglas has been waiting for, that the Jets franchise has been waiting for. Everything is in front of them now, and it's about making sure you do it the right way. Now, I think Joe Douglas has the right mindset. He says all the right things. Everybody you talk to or hear from about Joe Douglas, who knows him well, says he's going to do this thing the right way. For me, though, the right way has to be going offense, offense, offense. Do everything in your power to make sure that you don't make the same mistake with Zach Wilson that the organization made with Sam Darnold, that they made with Mark Sanchez. I've been, obviously, the last few days really digging in and breaking down some things. And, I know that it feels like for the last decade plus, it's just been defense, defense, defense all the time in the first couple rounds of the draft. But it actually is even worse than I remember. If you take out last year, where, again, I think Joe Douglas did a really nice job going, first 2 picks with Becton and Mims, that was the first time they went offense, first 2 picks since 2009 with Sanchez and Sean Green. And in that interim, when you look at 2009 through 2019, the Jets took 4 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds of the draft, and they took 4 other offensive players that entire time in the first 2 rounds, and those offensive players were all busts. You're talking Vlad Dukas, 5 starts in 4 years, Stephen Hill, Jay Samaro, and Devin Smith. I think all 3 of those guys were out of Jets uniforms in 2 seasons after that. So you've got to give yourself every opportunity to surround Zach Wilson with better offensive talent. And for me, that's especially with linemen. I mean, go out and protect this kid at all costs. So good start last year, but it's gotta continue. I don't want to see defense. I know they need cornerback and they need edge rusher, but it's got to be the majority offensive playmakers and protectors.
Well, Stephen, what makes that even more disheartening is that even if you go defense, you don't even have these guys to show for it. Beyond Quinnen, Marcus May, I mean, you either traded them away or or they were bust, whatever it was. Like, even if you could have an amazing defense if you spent that much capital on defensive players, but they don't. And that's a kick in the teeth too. Who's your all-time least favorite draft pick for the Jets?
Oh gosh, where to start? My all-time least favorite draft pick. God, I mean, Dukas ranks up there. Hackenberg ranks up there. I mean, there's just it honestly does seem like, right, over the last decade, there have been more extreme swings and misses than there were even mediocre hits. And that's the thing, is that, when you've got 21 picks now in the next 2 years, it's not even about finding superstars. It's about finding serviceable players at all levels of the draft that can contribute to an infrastructure of a team that you can then surround and augment with either trades or free agent signings. So again, that, like, for me, that is where I have my trust in Joe Douglas, because that does seem to be his specialty, his bread and butter. I think he understands how to do it, but now it needs to be done. Now it needs to happen. We need to see it. And so for me too, like, listen, I know you've got this capital now, and if they really love a player, go ahead, trade some of it to trade up. But for me, keep as many of those 21 picks as possible and take as many swings at this thing as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, nobody really knows. It's such a crapshoot, and the more chances you've got to hit, the better.
Yeah, Steve, do you get a sense, I could be wrong, the enthusiasm, not that Jet fans are not excited, but it's a little bit more tempered with Zach Wilson as compared to a few years ago when they traded up and drafted Sam Darnold. Reference Mark when they moved up and got themselves Mark Sanchez, or coming out of USC. Do you sense that maybe kind of it's a wait and see approach here with the Jet fan and the excitement around Zach Wilson?
I do, and I think it has to be at this point. The fan base has been beaten down a little bit, and I think with a guy like Sam Darnold. Yeah, well, I'm being a little kind here, Maggie. I'm just starting out, but when you look at a guy like Sam Darnold, Moose, this was the guy that for a year leading up to it, it was, the number one overall pick and suck for Sam. And I mean, this was the guy across the league that everybody was talking about. And even up until draft night, a lot of people thought that he would still be the number one overall pick. That's not the case with Zach Wilson. For many people, Zach Wilson was unheard of before, this draft season and a little bit before, and it was all about Trevor Lawrence. And then when it didn't happen and the Jets won that game, it's like, all right, well where do they pivot? And so, I think, listen, Zach Wilson, the tape looks incredible. You see the pro day, but he also, the knock, and it's natural, he did not play against the greatest competition, and especially last year because of COVID, BYU wasn't able to play those Power 5 teams that they have in the past. And so, the numbers, could they be a little skewed? Yeah, maybe. It's a wait and see. I think he can be great, but I think, again, and not to keep hammering this point home, with all of these guys, and this isn't just in the NFL, it's in all sports, so much of it is about the situation that you come into. The talent can be there, but the situation has to be there as well. And so I think natural talent-wise, the kid can make all the throws. He's got that, the little flashes of Mahomes and Rodgers and Russ Wilson with his off-platform throws. But if he comes into a situation like Sam Darnold did, where they don't surround him, then he's not going to be successful. Now, I think they know that. Joe Douglas knows that. Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, they seem like really, the right guys for this. But again, as a Jet fan who's been through this, the reason why you're getting that kind of, well, hold on, let's take a breath, is because we've seen this before. So it hasn't worked out. Is it going to work out this time? You hope so. I do think that the right people are in place to make the decisions this time. But until it happens, you just never know.
Listen, you've got unbelievable producers at SNY. I've been able to work with a couple of them. Mike Flynn, awesome. He doesn't need any input from me, but I have an idea. I would like to see at times during the season, doesn't have to be every week, I want to see Stevie G from Section 200, whatever you tweeted out the other day. You had season tickets all those years.
320.
Okay. You are a fantastic broadcaster. We know you are as professional as anything. You got to give us a little Stevie G, though, when things go wrong, and we all know you're thinking it, Gelbs. You got to hit us off with a little, like, I want the foam finger, whatever, the Jets hard hat, like, whatever you got to wear, and just, like, unload for us fan style. Like, can we pinky swear you'll do that at least once this season?
I mean, I'm in. You got to listen. You got to convince Flynn. I'll throw the idea out to Flynn. But I will say this: when we were in talks about this job and talking to the producers over there, they did say that one of the appeals of bringing me on is that, yeah, you know, professional broadcaster wise, I can do that, but I've got the Jets fandom background to connect with this fan base for real.
We need to feel your pain. You realize
so it's been about walking that line. Like, that's what they tell you. You got to walk that line. Maybe I don't. Maybe I can be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Maybe I can be professional broadcaster 75% of the time, but then bust out that foam finger, you know, put on the helmet like you said, and that's Stevie G, and he can do what he wants.
Exactly.
Right, or you should be basically like when you're hosting it, you got your Natalie attired, got the shirt and tie on, and then all of a sudden the next segment comes in, you're disheveled, wearing the beer helmet, and you're the Jet fan from Section 200 ranting and raving about how the defense collapsed in the second half.
Yeah,
just
and
flip
let me
the
tell you
script.
something. Let me tell you something. Living, like I said, in section 320, row 22. That was like 8 rows from the top, and the family in that section was it could have been an SNL skit, a sitcom in itself. By the way, that section, what I grew up learning from my father. Now I don't know if it's urban legend or not, but there was this huge dude in a Klecko jersey, big beard. And he would throw candy to everybody at the start of every game. And he was the guy, apparently, that started the JETS, Jets chant, not Fireman Ed, that it was in our section. So that section was like the section. And I don't want to, if I'm going to do this, I don't want it to just be Stevie G that I'm bringing out. I want to bring in some of these other guys. Like, I was a little kid, and I didn't even know this guy's name was sat 2 seats away from me. We just called him the Screamer. Our entire 20 years there, we just called him the Screamer. So I got to bring a little bit of all the characters.
You got your first feature. You got to go find this guy and make sure he's still around. If he's the original.
I was kind of hoping that when I tweeted it out, that one of them would be like, "Hey, I was the one that sat two seats away from you," and then I could find him again. That's the worst part of a new stadium is you're with these people for decades and decades and decades, and then you all get shuffled and you never see them again.
Steve, you're going to do great with the Jets. The other thing you do great with is the Mets. It's deGrom night tonight. What more can be said about the best pitcher in baseball? I mean, everything that's written, every take you see, everything on social. I mean, everything that gets thrown his way, it's all well deserved. But what more is there to say about his brilliance?
I don't know. And to be honest with you, and I've said this to a few people over the last couple of weeks, one of the greatest challenges of my career, and I'm not kidding about this, I'm not making a joke, is every 5 days trying to find a new way to characterize, define, contextualize what we're seeing. Because these broadcasts, and quite frankly, it's gotten to the point where it's not just the day of broadcast, but it's the day before and the day after, like previewing and recapping. It's become so much about him. And how many different ways can you say that this is maybe the best player I've ever witnessed up close, right? I think Pedro's the closest that you can compare him to from 99, 2000. But what we're witnessing right now, the craziest part about it is he just keeps getting better. This isn't like the peak and you say, well, okay, now he's dropping off. Every single start, it's better. It's more unhittable. And I think probably the best thing I've gotten so far came after that national start when I gave Kevin Long a call the next day, the former hitting coach for the Mets, who's obviously the hitting coach for the Nationals. And I said this on the air. He said to me, and he wasn't being funny, he said that when Starlin Castro got a hit in the second inning, that there was an exhale of, okay, at least we're not going to get no hit. He said, thank God we're not going to get no hit. I mean, think about Major League Baseball players and a Major League hitting coach. These guys are the most confident people on the planet. In the second inning, when they get a hit, saying, well, at least we're not going to get no hit. And that's what it's gotten. That's what it's gotten to. I mean, that's really the point that we're at. So I go back and forth between trying to contextualize it, like I said, and as Gary Cohen said the other day on the broadcast, just sitting back and appreciating it and enjoying it, because it won't last forever. And I'm not sure you're ever going to see something quite like this again. Truly. I mean, he is what he's doing right now at this peak, at this moment. It's impossible to think of anybody doing it better. Maybe close to it. Maybe Pedro was right there, but better? How?
No, he's just going to keep comparing him to Doc's year and see if he can, get under that ERA, and Seaver, in his career with the Mets and his career ERA. And it's going to be like, chasing those guys in Mets lore. I mean, he's already right in there. I think what's cool about what we're seeing from deGrom is at least we're getting a little bit more about what makes him tick. Like, I know you have a relationship with him, but he's very guarded. So to hear him say things like, I want to be an inner circle Hall of Famer, to have the reaction he did when he was asked about taking guys' souls, like, that's the kind of, like, and then the other part of it, Steve, like, I find that cool. And then the other part of it is, you can appreciate his starts more when you don't have to worry about whether or not the Mets are going to blow it for him in like the 8th or 9th inning. And I hate to say that, but it's part of it. Like the other day when you're staked to a 6-run lead or 4 runs and 6, like I could enjoy it more because I don't have to worry that the Mets are going to blow it and I'm going to have to talk about that the next day.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. You're right. It's become such a narrative, and rightly so, that when it's nothing in the 6th, you're saying, well, this guy's incredible, but he's about to, rack up another no decision, or, there's an unearned run and he's down 1-0, and you're just saying, like, how is this happening again? So I do think that the element last time of that, I mean, listen, he did it himself in the beginning. He opened the floodgates. I mean, that's another aspect of this that's just mind blowing. We don't talk about that enough, what he's doing offensively. But yeah, it's a totally different experience, because when they're scoring for him and he's staked to like a 3-0 lead, it's in the bag, it feels like, and you just sit back and you admire and watch greatness in action. When they're behind, or it's close, or they're tied, because of how often it's happened over the last number of years, it's the first thought is like, is this happening again? And so I keep saying it can't keep happening. It can't keep happening. It can't keep happening. I still think that, but I mean, it's kind of like with the Jets draft. Like, they're gonna figure it out, but until they do, consistently, we don't know.
Questions. Yeah.
What do you make of the Boo Birds raining down here for Lindor this early in the season? Yeah.
I mean, it happens. It's New York. Like, it happened to Conforto a couple of weeks ago. I think when you get a guy like Francisco Lindor in here and he signs that type of a contract, the expectations just are obviously through the roof. And if you get off to a slow start, it starts to become such a bigger talking point, a bigger issue. And, the fan base, especially with a guy like Lindor, who probably they aren't too familiar with, not watching him on a daily basis when he's playing out in Cleveland, like, wait a second, is this guy as good as people say? Well, I'm not seeing it. I mean, the at-bats right now have been tough. There have not been a lot of flashes offensively. We've seen some defensively, but I think that's going to happen. I also think that, the crazy thing about this town, and I learned it very early on, is that they watch baseball like it's football. And it's not football. It's not any other sport. It's such a marathon. And so, a slump for a week or 2 weeks becomes a huge deal. Obviously, it's becoming now, longer than that for Lindor. But over the course of 162, in a 60-game season last year, I get it. It's much more pressing. In 162, they start playing every day. The guy is too good. He's too electric. He'll come around, and they're not going to boo him for that much longer. But I can't say I was surprised when it happened last night. I can't say I was surprised.
We'll close it out because I mentioned we got to hit the Rangers here quick, right? You're a huge Ranger fan. You got 6 games to go here in the regular season. They're 4 back of the Bruins, 5 in back of the Islanders. You got 2 with the Isles, 2 with the Caps, 2 with the Bruins to close it out. The Rangers' goal differential this year is plus 35. What do the Rangers need to do next 6 in order to get themselves into that top 4?
6-0, and they got to do it in regulation against the Islanders and the Bruins. I think it's going to be a really, really tough thing to pull off at the end of the day, just because of the schedule. I think the Islanders, outside of those two against the Rangers, play only Buffalo and New Jersey.
Yeah.
So
which are doormats.
Yeah, right. So the Rangers, they need to sweep against the Islanders. They'd be one back of the Isles then, with the Isles having a game in hand. And then the Islanders need to lose, 2, right?
Yeah.
If the Rangers win out. So it's tough. I don't think it's going to happen. I think as a Rangers fan, anybody who is not thrilled with what they saw this year is just, the expectations are way too high for this team. In any other division in the league, they're in the playoffs right now. In any other year in the league, they're in the playoffs right now. This was an impossibly difficult division. They lost Artemi Panarin for something that nobody could have foreseen, for a period of time where if he's in the lineup during that stretch, they probably are in playoff position right now. And when you look at the future and you look at a regular season next year with these guys, these young kids, the way they've progressed, having another year under their belts, the future is out of this world bright. So enjoy the last 6. If they go 6-0, maybe, but they've got a really tough schedule. I don't know if they're going 6-0, and the guys they're facing, the teams they're facing, they don't have as tough of a schedule. So, but it's been fun. It's been fun, and the future is incredibly bright. Yeah.
All right, Mary F. Kill, Darnold, Sanchez, Geno Smith. No, I think I've taken this thing too far. Steve, thank you so much.
Gelbs, you're the best, brother.
We're excited for you. Tune in tomorrow. SNY at 7 o'clock. Yeah, SNY's exclusive Jets Nation Draft Day special. You got Steve, you got Bart, you got Braylon Edwards. You guys are going to have a blast. It is only on SNY, and we'll talk to you again soon. Steve, thanks so much.
See you later, guys. Thanks.
See you, Steve.
Stevie G.